morning, afternoon, midday, whatever. Looking forward to having a chance to get back out on Saturday and play. We're disappointed with our performance Thursday night. So many things we could do better. And it's going to be a huge challenge this Saturday when we go to Miami to play an undefeated Miami team, ranked. I think I saw where it's the first time since the early to mid-'90s that they've been 4-0, and a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz around their program, and this will be their ACC opener. So we expect that they'll be fully charged and ready to go. So we'll have to play much better than we did last week, but we're looking forward to that opportunity.
When you think of Miami's defense, you think of Denzel Perryman. What do you see from him?
Well, he's a good player. They've got Miami always has good players. They're very athletic. They can run. We had a crazy game with them last year. It was a heck of a game. But he's a quality player, and you can see that. I mean, he creates big plays for them, creates turnovers, and he's played a lot of football for them.
Coach, that defense of Miami over the last couple of years has really struggled, but just watching them a little bit against Florida and a little bit this year, they seem to have improved a lot. What are they doing different? Just getting older, just getting more mature?
Well, I think some of that. They've also changed. They're playing a whole lot of 3-4 stuff, looks like. They were pretty much exclusively 4-3 team the last couple of years, and I'd say 70% of their snaps, they're an odd front. Now, will they do that against us? Because, we've played them ever since Al was at Temple and I was at Navy. We've played, and they've pretty much lined up the same way. So we'll see. In fact, I think everybody that we've played this year has lined up the same way. Every team, including Virginia Tech. So it's kind of been the defense du jour.
Against Virginia Tech, Chris Milton only had a chance to play some special teams. Will he be able to line up on defense this week?
Yeah, he was available. I think that last week he hadn't practiced at all, and Coach Rue felt like that Demond and Dominique Noble had practiced every day, and they were, had had a decent week of practice, and I think he just felt like that they were better suited to play than Chris, who hadn't been able to get out there, but he still played on special teams.
Coach, Stephen Morris looks every bit the part of a pro player. What do you see on film on him, and just how he's improved over the last couple of years?
Well, he's a very talented guy. He's your prototypical, 6'5", 6'6" pro-style quarterback. He's got good wheels. He can run if he wants. He doesn't, doesn't choose to do that a lot. He's a pocket guy who tries to stay in there and distribute the ball to their weapons, and they have a lot of weapons. Duke Johnson is one of the better players in the country. They always have a large group of fast, talented wide receivers, usually a couple tight ends that are pretty good, and a huge offensive line. So, I don't think Miami's ever lacked for players. They always have good players.
Last year's game, when you look at it in hindsight, it looked like it would have been not maybe the turning point, but a turning point in the season. Do you feel like the players particularly that were here last year kind of remembered at the sense that they're trying to make this year's game maybe more, you're in kind of a crossroads situation, maybe they can kind of reverse that this year? Well,
I don't know what a crossroads. We're 3-1, but that's better than we were when we played them last year. But it's an important game because it's a conference game, but our guys haven't said anything about circle the wagons, this is it. 18 to 22-year-olds sometimes can't remember yesterday, much less last year. But they know that Miami's got a really good team, and it's a challenge to go down there and play, and it's always exciting and fun to match up against them because they're good athletes. So, it's a conference game and it's a division game, so it's important, no question about that, especially after we lost one last week.
After 4 games, do you feel like you have a pretty good handle on this team?
I think I've got a handle on it. I don't know that. I'm hoping and I think that the game on Thursday was an enigma, that we didn't play very well. We've done that a couple of times against Virginia Tech. I think you got to give them some credit. Evidently, they caused some of it because we seem to self-destruct when we play them. But I think the team's always changing, and as teams are. I mean, you're always, like I tell them, you're always getting better or worse. You don't ever stay the same.
Last night on your radio show, you talked a little bit about Justin and kind of him, doing more in practice and then feeling the need to get him in the game.
Well, I said he had a really good practice yesterday. I mean, he came out yesterday and was really focused, and I think he's probably healthy, completely healthy, and he looked really good. And the point being was, if he continues to do that, then he gives us reason to give him a series or two in the game. Vad's the starter. He has been since the season. That's not going to change this week. But when guys come out and work hard, practice hard, and look good in practice, they earn playing time. And if he continues to do that, he'll earn a couple series in the game.
Coach, with Jamal out, you tried a different combination back there on kickoff returns, and I guess Snoddy's a little banged up, so do you anticipate making some changes back there?
Well, we may have to if we don't have Broderick. I mean, we'll have to have somebody back there, and it's an ongoing tryout and practice this week. So the chances are pretty good that we'll have two different guys with Broderick hurt and Jamal not playing. So there's probably going to be a couple of different guys back there. Same at punt returner. We'll make some changes there. We got to have somebody to catch the ball.
Coach, you talked about the option not being as happy. Being as happy with the option. Is that something you work a little more on this week, or?
Well, we've worked on it all year. I think that what's happened, and hopefully what I saw yesterday, our guys worked at it with a little more urgency. And sometimes you talk about it and you say it, but when you're winning, they ain't listening. They're not hearing you. If they watch that on tape, they hear me. And they see that we got to do better, and we got to coach better. We got to coach the fundamental parts of it better. And but we work on it all the time, every day. I mean, a part of our practice, 20 minutes of our practice every day spent in an option drill.
After a game like last Thursday, could it help the team going on the road and having sort of the business trip type mentality?
Well, I don't know. I think it's always harder to play on the road than it is at home, but I think when you play poorly, players are like coaches, like fans, like everybody. They want to play again really fast because you want to get that taste out of your mouth, and you want to play better. Now, just so happens we're playing a team that's undefeated and ranked and really good, so we might play better, and you might not know it. But I think our guys are excited to embrace the challenge and go play again because we believe that we're better than the way we played on Thursday night.
You mentioned it last week about how you're doing too many things, not doing them well, any of them well. Does that kind of tie back to what you're saying about focus and you're not doing all those things with the option that you're?
Well, we really kind of cut back last week. I mean, and we didn't hit in practice with full pads much, but as I look back, I didn't see. Practice wasn't great, but it wasn't like it was terrible. And, I've challenged them since fall camp to have a little more intensity in practice and a little more up-tempo. And I saw that yesterday. So hopefully we'll play better if we'll continue to practice like that this week. I think that sometimes when you get embarrassed, it kind of makes you rethink where you are and what you got to do and how you got there. So I know I was embarrassed on Thursday, and I think a lot of the guys who played were, that they, that we couldn't stay on sides, we couldn't go on two, we couldn't block the right guys, we couldn't hang on to the ball, there was just so many things that we didn't do well that you should be able to do. It's not all ability. I mean, anybody can go on two. It's not that hard. You don't have to run 4-4 to be able to do that. So those kind of things that are self-inflicted.
named the captains for this?
The team voted on captains, yeah. The captains are David Sims, Jeremiah Tachu, and Jamia Thomas. You should follow me on Twitter. You'd already know that.
Point taken. Jamia, he's a guy that would seem to be an example of just someone who's kind of done things right. When he came here, wasn't terribly highly recruited from memory serves, but he's worked really hard. I always hear about how hard he's worked in the weight room, and it seems like he's really become.
Well, the recruiting part of it, he was pretty highly recruited. It just nobody just knew, which happens a lot. A lot of times, those guys will commit. Jamia is a great example. Jamia committed to Georgia Tech, and then all of a sudden he gets offered by Florida State, by Georgia, by whatever. But it's kind of a, well, what would you do if we offered you a scholarship offer? And if you don't say, well, I would come, well, I'm not sure we got one. But if you say you would come, then we got one. So, you know, and it doesn't get reported, but he was, towards the end of recruiting, he was pretty highly sought after kid. Now, early in the process, not so much because probably his size. But I tell you what, I'd like to have a boatload of Jamia Thomas. He's a great football player. He could play a bunch of spots. He'd be great at A-back. He'd be great at corner, at safety. He's a good football player, and he loves to play. I think the kids respect his ability as a player. And if you really get to know him, he's quiet kid if you don't know him, but I think like among his teammates and all, he's pretty witty and pretty funny, and, you know, they like hanging around him.
Another guy who seems to be maybe in that mold now is P.J. Davis. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, he's showing the signs that Jamea showed when he was a freshman, coming in and just playing hard.
Yeah, I
not
think
know what he's doing. But.
PJ's got great transition. He loves to play the game. He's kind of got a natural instinct, and he's a good player. And that's another great example of recruiting. I mean, you know, he didn't fit the prototypes, but he's a good player. When we had him in camp, he was one of the best players we had in camp. And you know, my take on it is, I believe what I see. I'm not worried about what some dude assigned stars thinks. You know, sometimes you're right, sometimes you're not. I think on him we were right. You know, most kids who can come in and start as a true freshman on this level are pretty good players, and he's come in and played pretty well.